Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
That's a terrific accident!
Accidents. They can happen anywhere.
Oh, we got a major problem!
And to anyone. In the next hour, you will witness the most terror-filled crashes ever caught on tape.
Oh.
From the inside.
I thought, okay, I'm gonna die today.
Much of the film we're about to show you has never before been seen. Agencies from all over the world have sent us this footage for one reason only. To teach you how to survive.
I feel extremely lucky to have got out of it with my life.
Because the way you prepare and the way you react can mean the difference between life and death. These are not reenactments. These are the kinds of accidents that can happen anytime and anywhere.
I'm Sheriff John Bonnell. After 25 years in law enforcement, I've seen and studied hundreds of tragic accidents. I've searched for clues to why they happened and asked how they might have been prevented. But the most telling clues are often discovered where cameras are rarely found, inside the crash. And that's exactly where we're going to take you, inside some of the most terrifying accidents I've ever seen. Because if you know what to expect, you'll know what to do to save your own life. So strap yourself in. We're about to take you inside a crash.
Helicopters. We see them so often we don't even pay attention to them. But maybe we should. If you see a police helicopter coming your way, it means there's trouble. And that trouble could be closer than you think. Sometimes a crash is just waiting to happen.
Just lost it there.
Learn what your local police helicopter looks like and steer clear of it. Because whatever it's covering, you don't want any part of it. Newsworthy events bring a fleet of choppers overhead, a situation that creates its own danger.
One of the fears that we have is not only running into other helicopters on our level, but if a helicopter above us runs into another helicopter above us, now we have to deal with the fact that they could fall on us.
For all their versatility, helicopters are the hardest aircraft to control. The tail rotor is the key to their stability, and without it, even a high-tech military Huey becomes a twisting, spinning wreck. And when a chopper loses control, there's no telling how it could fall. The simplest malfunction in a helicopter can have devastating results. Setting down after a long day in the skies, this news chopper is a mere 10 feet off the ground. But when the pilot tries to adjust the rotor speed, he suddenly loses control. The pilot doesn't have a chance. The chopper flips over. What was almost a textbook landing ends up totaling the helicopter. The pilot is lucky to walk away.
From the news to the medical field to the military, helicopters are here to stay. But when something goes wrong on a chopper, it's just not dangerous for those on board. It's dangerous for everyone below.
With helicopters covering our city skies, we all need a plan in case something goes wrong. Milwaukee, Wisconsin. This copter lifts an air conditioning unit off a high-rise as onlookers gather nearby. Suddenly, the tail rotor breaks and the chopper goes into a spin. This is the first and sometimes the only sign that a chopper is in trouble. The pilot strains to hold on, but realizes he might drift over the crowd with his 8,000-pound cargo. He drops it while he can. But he still can't get control. Now he fights to avoid the crowd himself. The onlookers don't realize they're in the danger zone. The pilot struggles to hold his course. The crowd rushes to the pilot's aid. Amazingly, because he was strapped in, he sustains only minor injuries. But the situation could have been much worse. The crowd watches from only 80 yards away. This chopper will drift more than 100 yards before crashing. Once you determine the direction of spin, find cover beside a building. Stay near a corner until you see which side offers more protection. Remember, you can't help others if you become a victim.
For those inside an out-of-control helicopter, you may feel powerless. But the fact is you can survive if you use the safety devices that are on board for you.
We're about to take you inside a falling helicopter. Because as frightening as it is, there's a life or death lesson to be learned. Sydney, Australia. 60,000 runners line up for the City to Surf Fun Run. Above them, news choppers fill the air. One pilot jockeys for position, a 3-person camera crew in the back. As the race gets underway, the pilot elevates to 1,000 feet for a wide shot. No problem. Suddenly, the tail rotor stalls and the chopper spins wildly. The pilot regains control. The crew figures it's a typical maneuver, and they don't question it. They don't strap in. They don't even get into their seat. The pilot, with only one more shot to get, decides to continue. Both would regret those mistakes. When the tail rotor stalls again, the pilot can't recover. Saving himself now becomes secondary to saving the thousands of people below. He spots a field, the only open spot for miles. He keeps his eyes on it as he struggles with the stick. Incredibly, no one was killed. The pilot, wearing restraints, walked away with scratches. But the 3 unfastened cameramen broke their back.
We hit. I remember being thrown around. I was upside down with a helicopter on top of me. That last 50 feet where it was that total, complete feeling of uselessness. That's a pretty scary feeling.
But passengers don't have to feel useless, and they shouldn't. In any vehicle, don't be afraid to question the first sign of danger. And no matter what kind of vehicle you're in, whether you're a passenger or a driver, always strap yourself properly in your seat.
I thought a lot about it, and I thought of how I did cheat death, and think about what could have happened.
These accidents are frightening, and we show them to you as a warning. You can prepare now, and must prepare now to survive inside a crash. Coming up on Moment of Impact, panic at the racetrack. The scariest crashes on 2 wheels, on 6 wheels, and on no wheels. A train that can't get stopped in time. An incredible video from a passenger aboard a crashing 767. Next. Caught off guard. Caught in the wreckage. Caught underwater.
We don't see anybody just yet, none of the crew members.
It can happen at any moment. And no one is safe.
The Raceway. This is the proving ground for every vehicle on the highway. From pickups to motorcycles, the track is going to push your vehicle to the limits of endurance.
And it's where drivers undergo the ultimate punishment. Vehicle performance is what they strive for, but it's safety they demand. Motorcycle riders are the most vulnerable people on the road. Lose it out here, and you get tossed like a rag doll onto the ground. In Australia, the Motorcycle Grand Prix gives an inside look into how brutal a cyclocrash can be. World champion Michael Doohan leads a rival with just 3 laps to go. Suddenly, on a sharp turn, their wheels collide. Both racers go down. Doohan's legs get pinned under his bike and dragged along the track. His competitor gets flipped, landing headfirst on the concrete. Incredibly, both are back on their feet in second. But these aren't the kind of guys that head for safety. They jump right back in the race. A camera inside the rival's bike tells the tale. The rival was making an inside move on the turn. Doohan leaned in sharply, and the impact sent them both flying.
Everything was going fine until we got to turn 9, and basically I was going in there, knew that there's no way someone's going to outbrake me now, because I was just about to have the bike down, and bam!
But this was the moment they had prepared for. Doohan's leather racing suit saved him from being skinned alive. The Kevlar knee pad alone is designed to withstand this abuse on every turn. Doohan walks away without a scratch, and his competitor, wearing a helmet, is able to shrug off what could have been a lethal blow.
When you get on a motorcycle, this is your new best friend, and it can save your life.
Helmets have become the biggest lifesaver for cyclists everywhere. Just ask Matt Wade of Lodi, California.
Going around turn 3, the back end stepped out on me, and I thought it was just going to be a low slide, and then another bike behind me ran over me, and I guess I'll take it easy next time.
Remember, wear the right gear, and it could save your life. This kind of footage has become an integral part of racing, putting you closer than ever to the action. This is NASCAR, attracting millions to the circuit every year. At 130 miles an hour, the crashes can be spectacular. Reaction time is minimal, and the safest action may not be what you would expect. Race car drivers are taught that the smartest place to steer may be toward a crash, because when you get there, it will have moved. Dover Downs Raceway, Delaware. When this green car gets clipped by a rival, he bounces off the wall and skids broadside across traffic. In all, 6 cars take the hit. Amazingly, no one is injured. But car 34 learns a valuable lesson. From the driver's seat, there seems to be an open lane to the left. Had he gone right, he might have avoided this collision. These cameras give us amazing views we've never seen before. Imagine if this had happened on the street.
If a crash is inevitable, you know you're going to hit. Try to steer toward the back of the car so you'll hit away from the passengers.
The officer driving down this road will have a split second to react. He steers toward the back of the car. His quick thinking missed the driver's side door, saving the other man's life.
Most of us will never be involved in a high-speed crash. But what if we were? Could our vehicles take the abuse? This is where the track really matters, both to car makers and you.
Pickup trucks. They aren't meant to roll over, but if they do, the effect could be devastating. For this truck, the roof separates, becoming a flying guillotine above the driver's head. This unbelievable view, just inches inside the panel, sees how quickly it tears away. The driver is saved by the roll cage. And with this videotape, truck makers now have critical information on how to improve production models. After all, these vehicles don't have roll cages. A front-end to front-end collision is one of the most common accidents on the street. And you can see how cars get upended, threatening to tip over. Cameras capture tests like this from every possible angle, because you never know where danger will strike. And on America's roadways, cars and pickups will see a lot of each other. In Europe, a different kind of vehicle takes to the track, semis. Amazingly agile for their size, they hug turns at over 80 miles an hour. But when this white semi loses control, we get an inside lesson from the truck coming up behind him. Driver Richard Walker steers desperately to avoid the sideways rig, but his truck doesn't respond. A braking semi by sheer mass wants to stay in a straight line. Drivers careen off-road trying to avoid the pileup. But Walker, wearing proper safety equipment, would walk away, feeling only the agony of defeat. For those not in a big truck, the concern is greater. Once a truck hits the brakes, there's nothing more it can do. But you still have options. If you see a semi coming behind you that can't stop in time, your safest move is sideways. Get to the shoulder. Because cars are no match for large trucks. And pedestrians are at even greater risk. It's a lesson that this trackside photographer is about to learn in the most intense way.
Well, I knew it was going to be close, but there was nowhere to go, so I just held the shot, and when the glass and the windscreen started hitting me, I ducked.
He was saved by the concrete barrier, the same kind of barriers that now line many freeways, which could keep this from happening to you.
The world of racing isn't confined to land. Sport boating is very popular, offering all the thrills of the track and even more of the danger. We're going to take you onto the waves to show you what can go wrong and what happens when it does.
When an accident happens out here, the water can be more unforgiving than concrete. $250,000 rigs disintegrate on impact. The pilots of this yellow powerboat skip across the ocean at 100 miles an hour. It looks like smooth sailing. But when the nose dips a few inches too far, the hull splinters into kindling. If water can have this impact on a boat, think about how it can batter a pilot that goes skidding across the surface. This is why speedboaters wear the same racing suits that motorcyclists do. For this pilot, it was a lifesaver. But a boat crash is never over on impact. Pilots often find themselves in a much worse situation, bruised, disoriented, and trapped underwater. Key West, Florida. This 40-foot racer takes the lead into the final turn of the race. Suddenly, in a spray of mist, the boat disappears. The two pilots wear helmets, which will save their lives. As seen in this amazing inside view, they hit the water head first at 80 miles an hour. But the helmets absorb the impact. What could have knocked them unconscious doesn't even faze them, and the pilots climb to safety. For these pilots, survival will depend not just on their equipment, but on their training.
Oh, we got a major problem. Carlos and Charlie's has hooked and flipped over.
The crash is followed by a tense moment, with everyone holding their breath.
And now there you see the boat. We don't see anybody just yet. None of the crew members, Carlos and Charlie's.
Rescue crews swarm the scene. But inside the boat, as seen in this actual crash footage, the pilots had remembered a life-saving fact. When you're disoriented underwater, the boat is at the surface. Life vests help them swim to air pockets under the hull. Miraculously, they got out with only minor injuries. But sometimes, the people in a boat aren't the only ones in danger. SeaWorld, Aurora, Ohio. Families gather for a day of water shows, dolphin tricks, and killer whales. And for 4,000 visitors, the day wouldn't be complete without a boat show. But as this 18-foot speedboat approaches the crowd, the jet drive housing unit shatters. Suddenly, the driver can't steer, and he can't stop. The crowd has no chance to react. The audience hurries to aid the victims as help arrives. Incredibly, no one is killed. The community effort kept people calm and prevented further injuries. It's a lesson for all of us. Sometimes accidents will happen, but we can help, and we can make a difference. Educate yourself on aid techniques, and lend a hand. What you do may save someone's life. Next, on Moment of Impact, our fears about public transportation become frighteningly real. A passenger keeps the camera rolling, even as his airplane smashes into the runway. And a terrifying mid-air collision stuns an air show crowd. Because even when you see it coming, a crash still takes you by surprise. From the lab to the track, from the road to the rail. crashes hit you where you live.
Before a car gets on the street, before it even gets on the track, it has to make it here first, the crash test lot. Because if these dummies can't take the hit, you never will.
It can happen in an instant, and it can change your life forever. Crash investigators go to tremendous lengths to put their products to the test. They study how your car takes the hits from the front and from the back. These tests improve car frames, but they also improve obstacles that you might run into. Because of guardrails that collapse as they slow you down, or utility poles that break away at their face, passengers get jostled instead of killed. Because of tests like these, road hazards are becoming less threatening to everyone. But sometimes objects don't yield, and our cars have to be ready. Tests like these have led to such safety improvements as anti-lock brakes and airbags. But the simplest devices are up to you to use. Never carry your child on your lap. The safest place is a proper child seat in the back, and keep your own seatbelt fastened. Even as slow as 25 miles per hour, school zone speed, a wreck can be devastating to a family. Only when you can survive this do the cars go on to the next level.
A racetrack is a great place to take an automobile, crank it all the way up to the top, the very limits of what it can do. Once you know that, we'll know how it'll work on our streets.
This is Rallycross, one of Britain's most popular sporting events. Nowhere are cars driven harder, and nowhere is the human factor put to a bigger test. People from all walks of life are attracted to the danger, and not just as spectators. Meet Barry McGuigan, former featherweight boxing champion of the world turned rally car racer.
Barry McGuigan, ladies. Barry McGuigan coming in number one.
When people this aggressive get behind the wheel, there's no telling what can happen. Inside the car, Barry lets out a cry.
Oh no, please.
It's not pain or fear that he's feeling. It's frustration at a race loss. Only a car this safe could allow Barry to drive with such abandon. And drive with abandon he does.
Barry, when you roll it, oh dear, that's up to the terrific accident there. I turned in, 3/4 of the car length in front of Steve Easton. Steve just left his braking too late, made contact with me on the back right corner of the car, and that was enough to put me over.
Inside the car, glass shatters in Barry's face. His head bounces off the roof and steering wheel. His body is racked by the impact. But miraculously, he's not injured. Barry lives the punishment of the track, which helps the rest of us live through the dangers of the highway. Without guys like him pushing our vehicles to the limit, we might not know what they can handle until it's too late. But Barry knows what all racers know. As exciting and beneficial as racing can be, this kind of driving should be left on the track. On our freeways, driving is not a competition, but some people still feel the need to treat it as one. Aggressive driving. It's a recipe for disaster. There's no more certain way to end up inside a crash. And yet, we're all guilty of it now and then. We're late, so we drive a little faster. Maybe we roll through a stop sign. Here's an aggressive driver cutting through a gas station. He's lucky no cars were pulling in the other driveway. But if we get where we're going in one piece, we figure no harm, no foul. It's an attitude that could get you there a few seconds earlier, or it could keep you from getting there at all. There are no winners when people take unnecessary chances behind the wheel. And accidents out here don't have the benefit of rescue crews waiting several yards away.
You might think that you know all about driving fast in traffic, but trust me, if you're an aggressive driver, you're a dangerous driver.
So before you punch the gas, remember, you're not the only one on the road. Officers have to deal with reckless drivers on a daily basis. They know as well as anyone what it's like to be involved in an accident. by the very nature of their job, cops on the street have to respond quickly.
Dispatch, we're in pursuit.
Coming in pursuit.
And when they're called into action, anything can happen. When criminals run from the law, they're an accident in the making. Sometimes the crooks lose it before officers can corral them. But when a suspect won't be stopped any other way, an officer may be called upon to cause a wreck, ramming the criminal with his cruiser before the criminal can hurt anyone else. Police officers not only learn when to crash, but how to crash, because sometimes a crash comes looking for them. But if a suspect is captured with no civilians injured, a battered squad car is a small price to pay.
Public transportation. The moment we step on that bus, we feel safe. The sheer size and high platform put us above traffic, protected from injury. But when a bus is involved in an accident, the view from the inside is entirely different.
For all those who think being on a bus is a guarantee of safety, this test footage shows otherwise. Consider the standard school bus. Most are without seat belts. A crash sends children flying into the seat backs in front of them. Or worse, into the shattering glass beside them. The question you need to ask yourself is, how would your child fare? Knox, Indiana. A video camera was placed in this bus to encourage kids to behave, but it would record an event that will change your thinking of buses forever. The group of grade schoolers is happy to be going home, unaware that the bus driver is having a seizure. But when they miss a turn, 17-year-old John Waldron senses trouble. This is a lesson to passengers. Don't hesitate to act if you think something is wrong. The student asks the driver if he's all right. The driver doesn't respond. The bus gains speed, racing toward the rickety bridge over Eagle Creek. The student dives to the floor, hitting the brake with his hand. Finally, the bus comes to a safe stop. But a closer look shows how disastrous this event almost was. The danger area of a speeding bus is above the back wheel well. Every bump channels directly into that seat. The child on the right is actually thrown against the ceiling before he falls to the floor. Incredibly, he suffers only minor bruises, but the crash could have broken his neck.
Every day, thousands of trains carry people, cargo, and fuel all across America. They're the fastest and most powerful transports on land. And because of their size, it can take a train over a half a mile to stop.
So it's up to you to watch out for them. As this footage shows, a train crossing accident can be devastating. Even a semi can't stand up to a train's awesome power. People who think they can beat a train have overlooked an important fact. The speed of a train is most deceptive from inside your car. In Lenexa, Kansas, this white Cadillac has gotten stuck on the track. The family doesn't want to leave their beautiful car, but an officer convinces them that the train is too close. Seconds later, the officer is proven correct. The Cadillac is destroyed. The family is upset, but alive. Don't try to beat a train. You are betting your very life you can make it, and that price is too high. Coming up on Moment of Impact, the most sophisticated plane, the most experienced pilot, the best laid plans can become disastrous. It can put 3,000 spectators in shock, or 300 passengers on the edge of their seats. Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised. 5 miles high, 500 miles an hour, all the speed, all the agility, all the danger.
The safest form of transportation is often the most feared. Air travel transports millions of passengers safely around the world each day. So why do we feel so uneasy in the sky?
The Oklahoma City Air Show. If anyone can handle an airplane, it's this aerobatics champ, a 10-year veteran of stunt flying. In one of his more dangerous maneuvers, he stalls the engine and goes into a dramatic dive. But something goes wrong. The engine won't restart, and he has no time to bail. The crowd cheers the fantastic stunt until they realize he can't recover. In a flash, the show turns into a nightmare. These are the images that haunt people. The fear that any wreck in a plane will be your last. The knowledge that there are no fender benders at 20,000 feet. Air shows across the country continue to feed our love-fear relationship with flying. The precision stunts are spectacular to watch. And yet in an instant, we can be reminded that air crashes can happen to anyone. Chesapeake Air Show, Maryland. The ground shakes as the F-117 Stealth races overhead, a $45 million marvel of technology. This awesome piece of machinery has an onboard computer that can allow the pilot to fly virtually hands-off. And despite its composite construction and boxy frame, it has full fighter mobility. It's the ultimate example of technology, and its performance record is unparalleled by any other aircraft in the history of the military. But as the crowd watches this wonder of aviation, the unthinkable happens. The epoxy on the wing fails, and the wind rips it away. The Stealth goes into a spin. The pilot has to parachute to safety. How is it possible that such an accident could happen?
Air shows have taught us that even the best aeronautic equipment can have faults. And just as important to solving those problems is the need to increase safety standards in case something does go wrong.
Every system must be built with a way out. For pilots of aircraft like this, two innovations have dramatically increased their survival rate: a fireproof cockpit and a reliable ejection system. But ejecting can be dangerous in itself. A tumbling plane could throw you downward, directly into its own path of descent. In England, two Russian MiG fighters attempt a near pass as part of their routine. A miscalculation proves devastating.
Emergency rescue. Plane down. Plane down.
The first pilot ejects below his aircraft. The wreckage tumbles toward him, but then changes direction. Having been thrown 200 yards from his jet, the pilot was in the clear. The other plane explodes on impact, plummeting toward Earth. Spectators fear the worst. Emergency crews rush to the site. Then they see him, miraculously still alive. Incredibly, the cockpit withstood the explosion. The pilot escaped seconds before the burning plane crashes. But for those on the ground, this is where the danger begins.
If the plane's going down, the pilot's going to do everything in his power to the very end to miss homes, to miss apartments. He'll look for water, he'll look for fields, he'll look for anywhere where people aren't.
In Toronto, a Royal Reconnaissance jet attempts a routine maneuver called a dumbbell turn for the airshow crowd. When the engines stall, he knows his only hope is to ditch the plane in the lake. He steers desperately toward the water. His quick thinking not only avoids the spectators, it avoids an explosion, one that could have killed hundreds. The plane is destroyed, but thanks to the efforts of the pilot, countless lives were spared.
Aircraft safety has undergone rigorous testing. The airplane is still safe because every system has a backup, and every backup has a backup. And even when everything goes wrong, the airplane is still working to save your life.
El Toro Marine Corps Air Station. This is Top Gun graduate Colonel Jerry Caddick. Performing in a supersonic F-18, his air show routine has gone without a hitch. For his finale, he steers into position for a move called the Square Immelman. First, he'll fly straight up at a 90-degree angle, then flip over and fly parallel to the ground. He'll then dive straight down and finally pull out laterally to complete the square. Easy. Many pilots have done it, but usually at 20,000 feet and 125 knots. Jerry plans to complete the move a mere 500 feet above the crowd and at a slower speed. Very dangerous. But the Top Gun isn't worried. This plane is a dream, the perfect flying machine. The split screen shows Caddick's plane on the right, and the inside the cockpit heads-up display on the left. These views give us an incredible insight into the split-second timing of this maneuver. Caddick dives toward the runway, the stunt going according to plan. But when he pulls back on the stick, the plane doesn't fully respond. This is a pilot's nightmare.
I had 87 knots of airspeed instead of 125. And I pulled the stick back to the tightest that the airplane is aerodynamically capable of turning in the shortest amount of space.
The plane noses up, but continues to plummet. For a moment, Caddick loses sight of the ground.
It crossed my mind that I might not recover from this maneuver, in which case I was going to crash and die.
The F-18 slams into the runway. Caddick's body absorbs the 15,000-pound impact, literally the weight of a locomotive on his chest. It's impossible to believe anyone could have survived. Rescue crews are on the scene in seconds. Miraculously, they find Caddick alive. Two design features had saved his life. First, the plane's remarkable restraint system had cushioned the blow. Then when the engines explode, the isolated fuel tanks keep the flames to the rear. This footage has been studied by designers, not only for what went wrong, but for what went right. Because the safety standards that are achieved here will make it into the planes you fly in. Next, on moment of impact, landing's gone awry. A prop plane in the jungle, headed for a cliff. A jumbo jet in the city, headed for a neighborhood. These are your innermost fears of flying, as seen from inside. Next. From textbook takeoff to terrifying landing. When it all goes wrong, will you be ready? Crash testing. It's not just for automakers. Aircraft manufacturers put billions of dollars every year toward higher safety standards for their planes. Some of the tests are simple, a belly landing in a prop plane, but it shows how the rigid shell of the plane becomes flexible to absorb the impact. And dummies are spared a critical jolt. Commercial airliners have the same strategy. Design the bottom to safely cushion the blow, and the cabin withstands the crash. But the most intense tests involve crashes that look more like movie effects than real airplanes. Manufacturers not only study how to avoid these crashes, they study how to make them survivable. Because sometimes, the choice is not whether you crash, but how. In Chiapas, Mexico, Dr. Jeffrey Wilkerson rides in this dual-prop plane toward a grassy jungle runway. You're about to see actual footage from inside the cabin, with a crash inevitable. The passengers buckle up as the plane approaches the landing strip. Wilkerson, camera in hand, is afraid they're coming in too high and too fast. But as a passenger, he decides to say nothing. It would prove a mistake. Suddenly, a tailwind stirs up, driving the plane into the runway. The plane races toward a sharp drop-off at 60 miles an hour.
The pilot at that point swerved, and this is what saved our lives.
The pilot actually steered into a crash in order to avoid a much bigger one. The plane plows to a halt.
Had we gone down this slope, nose first, 60-plus miles per hour, as soon as one of these massive wheel mounts hit one of these tropical wood stumps, we would simply have carted it, and in all probability, there would have been only the bodies.
All 5 passengers, properly fastened in, escape before the fuel tanks ignite. The decision to take the smart crash is a hard one, but it saved their lives. Everything we've learned about airline safety will come into play one terrible and frightening evening at La Aurora Airport. This horrifying video was shot by a passenger aboard an ill-fated 767.
I thought, okay, this is my last moment. I'm going to die today.
For Jose Martinez, the journey begins in El Salvador. He hugs his family goodbye and boards his 767. He decides to film the trip, not knowing that this tape may provide clues that will save countless lives. Warning, This video captures a real airliner crash with hundreds of lives at stake. Shortly after takeoff, the airplane runs into a violent thunderstorm. The rain batters the aircraft. It isn't anything this jet can't handle, but the experience puts nervous passengers on edge. Before long, the clouds clear. It would seem that the worst is behind them. All systems are go as the crew prepares for the descent into Guatemala City.
They never said nothing about any emergencies or anything. So we were expecting a normal landing.
Touchdown. The passengers burst into applause. Unfortunately, it came too soon. When the plane deploys the thrust reversers, the airplane doesn't slow, and the wet runway doesn't allow for traction.
It's never slowed down. Never slowed down.
The shouts of cheers turn into cries of terror as they hydroplane down the runway. The jet overshoots the tarmac and plows into nearby houses. It's pure chaos as the passengers scramble to escape.
They tell us that we have to leave the plane because it might explode.
This is every air passenger's biggest fear. One spark and it's all over. Incredibly, the wreckage never ignites. The pilot had hit the fire handle, turning off the fuel and hydraulics. In 90 seconds, the passengers are off the plane, and no one is seriously injured.
It's amazing how we are alive because we're supposed to die that day.
But safety had the upper hand, from the seatbelts to the evacuation procedure. It's a lesson for air travelers everywhere. Do keep your seatbelt fastened, and do know where the emergency exits are. Those few seconds you take to prepare could be the best investment you ever make. Coming up, on Moment of Impact, when the racing heats up, the photographers are on top of the action. And as dangerous as it can be behind the wheel, it can be more dangerous behind the camera.
The footage we've shown you in the last hour has been very intense, but it's just as intense for those people behind the camera. The people who film air shows and car races have to be as dedicated to their profession as the drivers, because sometimes they're in just as much danger.
This is the Australian Canberra Rally, a 3-day marathon on road and off. The fans come out in droves, and so do the cameras. This is Mike Barnett, a photographer who has covered rally races for over 15 years. Today, Mike sets up along the final leg of the circuit, a mere 5 yards from the track. Cars race by at 120 miles an hour. Mike has no idea just how dangerous this position is, but he soon begins to notice something.
I was probably about 15 feet off the side of the road. I think just about every one of them lost it very slightly on the curb.
This time, Mike's courage overcomes his good judgment. What you are about to see is a warning to anyone who would ignore the signs of impending danger.
This particular car came through and lost it just like all the others had, and I thought he'll recover. I heard a screech of brakes, an almighty crash, and I was cartwheeled into the air and landed on the ground beside the car.
Mike is knocked off his feet, his left leg shattered, but the danger is far from over. Mike now faces a much graver threat.
I was lying on the ground beside the car, watching the back wheels spinning. At that point, the driver hadn't realised that he'd hit me. If this car was able to dislodge itself, it may very well have fishtailed and had a second go. He ran over me a second time.
Amazingly, the car misses Mike as it peels out. Mike is rescued by his fellow photographers. Incredibly, he would recover from the accident.
I feel extremely lucky to have got out of it with my life.